Hello, everyone. Welcome to ForcedToPod. My name is Saxon, but you can call me Sax. Joining me this morning, I have the man who knows no stranger, nor pepper too spicy, man with the cap. Nick, how are you doing this morning?
Good. A little tired, stayed up past my bedtime, hanging out, drinking in the garage with some of my friends, reminiscing
Let's
about
go.
some type 2, actually mostly type 3 fun that I had in the military later. But yeah, thanks for noticing my hat. I got it at a concert I went to Thursday.
Let's
And
go.
I also stayed up past my bedtime.
Man, lots of late nights in Nick's household. Well, maybe just for you. Sounds like everyone else might be going to bed on time, but
Yeah, pretty much.
and last but certainly not least, let me get that out right. We have the man who would always rather be outside than wherever he's at right now. The dapper one got up, he got his hair brushed. He's out doing us today. The one and only I am the mountain man, Walker. How you doing, man?
I'm good. We're T minus 1 week from Big Bend, so that's all I've been doing. I'm ready to go. I got my map right here.
Let's go.
I got
You're
a
gonna take
tire
your little
repair
book.
kit. I'm getting ready. Everything's like laid out, all
What's
ready
that book
to go.
called that has all the info in it?
Huh?
Remind me. What's
The
that
map?
one book you have that not a map?
Oh yeah, that the handyman something or other.
You're gonna
It's
take
in
that
the
with
other
you?
road. Yeah, the pocket handyman.
Yes.
Pocket handyman. That's what it is.
Pocket handy. So this is episode 19 of the podcast. In the new year, we're striving to grow the show and grow our community. So like and subscribe, follow on all social media. You guys have been killing it recently, so we appreciate that. Hang with us till the very end, and the more you watch, the more you keep it up, the more people that all the algorithms show to. So we appreciate it. And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can join at bit.ly/forced. It's early, guys. ForcedToPod Discord. Just join right there. All one word, bit.ly/ForcedToPod Discord.
The more people who see the podcast, the more people who can tell me that big old lizards aren't dinosaurs. Like watching nerds.
I actually agree with the angry man on the internet in this case. Not us, the
No,
angry man on the
it's
internet.
not wrong.
Yeah.
But like the difference between an extinct marine reptile and a dinosaur is that their legs are shaped differently. That's the only reason a mosasaur is not a dinosaur. It's because his legs sprawl out to the side; they're not upright, which is fucking
So
stupid.
clearly somebody Googled this in a panic the other day.
I wasn't in a panic. I was just mad. I was in a pedantic rage. Like, you're right, but shut up. It is a dinosaur. You're gonna tell a 6-year-old's gonna be like, look at that big ass dinosaur in the water. You're gonna go, that's not a dinosaur.
Yeah, that would make you a jackass if you are bullying 6-year-olds.
Well,
Well,
that
I'm a
does
6-year-old,
like,
so
yeah, for real.
There you go. You heard it here first.
That does sound like people who I don't know that there's an easier way, or like, can you with nuance say like, hey man, like, do you just pull them to the side and be like, that's not a dinosaur? Like, it's like, I feel like if you care that much to let someone know, you're gonna say it in the worst way possible.
well,
So strong reaction to that. I'm so guilty of that shit all the time.
yeah, same. I'm not actually that mad about it. I'm more mad than I think about calling it a dinosaur.
No, because it's not a big deal.
Is I got corrected.
It's not a big deal, and usually the way I approach it, because I love fun facts and I love minutia and I love to be a pedantic jackass, but I usually approach it with like excitement. You're like, oh my god, did you know that XYZ thing is actually the case, or whatever. Like, did you know that a Portuguese man-o-war isn't a true jellyfish? It's a colony organism of siphonophores or whatever the fuck, right?
Of course,
You're like, I
everybody
found a
knows
jellyfish.
Yeah, I feel
Oh,
like
there
you
you
might have
go.
just made that whole thing up, but that's okay. It sounded good. It sounded really good when you said it.
I think they're siphonophores, or somebody on the internet tell me I'm an idiot, but
Probably will.
yeah, please be my guest.
Yeah, that's the thing too. It's like I don't know. We put it into our special algorithm, and it tells me, okay, this is stuff that people are either going to get triggered by or going to watch, do things like that. But it's always funny to see, like, okay, when you strike gold, it's when you get like a bunch of likes really early on like one of our short videos, and then all of a sudden someone drops a little bomb like that, and they're like, well, actually, and it's like, okay, here we go, and doing that. So regardless, if you see one of our videos on your shorts feeds, TikTok, Instagram, anywhere like that, liking, subscribing, doing all those things, sharing it, they go a long way. So, well, boys, today we're on a tight schedule. We got stuff to do. And so we got topic number 1 for today. This is what I'm going to do after this. is Heather has said, hey, I got you booked for X amount of time, however long it's going, because she purchased a new rolling island like for our kitchen and we're putting it together. I feel like it's the plight of home ownership. My favorite furniture we have is the stuff that other people have delivered, set up, and left for me, even if I'm paying that. And so I just want to get your guys, what are our thoughts? Where are we coming down on this? It's not IKEA. It's coming from Home Depot, but it's going to be that same type of deal where you're putting
Potato, tomato, right?
It came in a big box, 50 million pounds. Honestly, I'm just looking for support in this moment because I'm not spending 2-3 hours of my life fighting for it. So
2-3 hours, my guy.
We'll see, dude. This is a
big
very
one?
intricate. It's got all sorts of like drawers and cabinets and stuff in it. Like this is an endeavor. So
I have several tips for building furniture at home since I do it often, and I end up having to take apart shit every time we move, and then put it back together. Open the box and get all of the parts out, and make sure you know which one's which, and then make sure that if two of them have the same label or whatever, that they're not like opposite sides, because you're gonna end up taking half of your thing apart to switch parts and put it back together. Also, I'm sure you have a drill. I'm sure it works really well. Don't run all of your screws in with a drill if it says not to.
Yeah.
It's fine to do it to the point where it needs to be hand tightened the rest of the way, but like some of that furniture, you'll strip it out immediately.
Yep.
I put Reagan's bed together with an impact drill, and got a little ambitious with a couple of them. Ended up stripping out screws. So that's just my. And then also, I think we talked about it. Just plan for it to suck and have fun doing it. Put on some tasty jams and tell Heather to leave you alone for a while.
Use the right tools and definitely get yourself a nice set of Allen keys. Like the Allen keys that they ship with all those things fucking suck. Get yourself a nice set of ball end powder coated Allen keys from Germany, and that's like the only tool you'll need for the rest of your life. And that's not true at all because you always need more tools. But
alternatively,
that's
you
a
can just
big
go to
one up
Harbor
there.
Freight. You just get cheap American ones at Harbor Freight.
Nah, the Germans know what's up on the Allen keys. Let me tell you.
We're endeavoring on other territory, so I'm gonna keep it on track. But honestly, you're like 1,000% right on the Allen keys though, because new job. I mean, it's not new anymore, but current job, we'll say that. I do a lot of AV installation, so TV mounting and stuff, which I had never done before. So if you need a TV mounted, don't call me. I don't want to do it because I do it every day at work. But I could tell you what you're doing wrong if you need help. But we had this series of TVs where we were swapping out a bunch of hardware and swapping out the cameras and stuff. And some team that came in and did the original installation, they had used a drill with a bit with like just the hex heads, and then none of us had a bit that could fit that. Or if we did, the screws were too soft. So it just started boring them out like so easily when you're trying to remove them. We went and borrowed someone's like hex keys, and they were honestly like, I don't know the right term for it. It's like long stemmed. Like they had very, very long handle. So you could really get leverage with them, and it just popped those suckers off there. And so we ended up, I have actually at work, but I have a really, really nice set. And so I definitely agree with that.
Just run to the office and grab your stuff.
Honestly, probably wouldn't be a bad idea. So I have a really nice screwdriver here, and that, classic thing. So you can see, well, actually, I don't know if you can see it. Up above me to the left, we put up, we had some people over for the Super Bowl. And before that, it was the classic, Heather was making fun of me. It's like where you're having a bunch of people over, and then like the man decides he's going to go like cut all the bushes in the back that he's been putting on, stuff like that. So it was like my side quest I had to do, where I had these floating shelves that I hadn't installed, but I've had them for like 2 months since I painted the room. Honestly, they've just been sitting over there, and I had pieces of tape up on the wall that indicated where they were supposed to go, but that was good enough for me for a long time. So I did that the other week, and it just going through that process, everything. And my father-in-law was in town, and he's the classic, like, you can use a drill, but no matter how tight you got that fit, how good it is, you always hit it with a hand screw. Like, you always go in with a screwdriver. Just make sure it's done at the ends.
Well, you gotta pick a torque spec on that. Was what you got to do. Don't you got to have a good torque wrench for this? Of
Guess
course.
so.
You can get some at Harbor Freight.
Torque wrench did come from Harbor Freight because I can't afford the German torque
Right.
wrenches.
Well, what can you not afford more, the German torque wrench or the wrong torque spec on a torque wrench from Harbor Freight that isn't putting out what you thought it was, and you either
They're
over tightened
they're
or
like
under
plus or
tightened?
minus 10%. It's fine. You just
Yeah,
you get a little extra beans and it's good.
yeah. I have the ones that I have are the click. They're not
Yeah, yeah.
digital.
No,
It's
I don't. I prefer the click type.
sometimes it's hard to feel it like click if you're at a lower. Well, I've had to put stuff
Okay,
on
I
with
was
like
like,
inch pounds instead of
no,
foot
you need a
pounds.
smaller
Yeah,
torque wrench. You get a
yeah.
smaller torque wrench.
I have a small one, but even that, like
You have a
sometimes it's
small one?
yeah. I
Man.
have one that does like 20 to 100 inch pounds or something like that instead of foot pounds. Kristen drives a Chrysler 200 that has the dumbest torque specs on like
What
changing
car has
parts.
like 20 inch-pound torque specs on something? Like,
It
don't
was
even put
on
torque spec on it.
it was on the throttle body when I placed the throttle
Oh,
body.
weird.
Yeah, it was stupid. Anyway,
I don't
sorry,
know
I
that
didn't
I've
mean
ever
to derail you.
heard anyone say a nice word about a Chrysler. I don't think so. Yeah, and I mean, my hometown literally is like one of the biggest has like one of the biggest Chrysler plants in America, but I don't have a nice thing to say about the actual Chrysler branded stuff. So Walker, how much furniture did you guys put together when you moved into the new place? Do you have much, or did you just kind of like
Not much.
supplant it from one to the next?
So I have a crippling Facebook Marketplace addiction. So most of our shit is used and came whole. Some stuff we have like an old this bookshelf that was that same style of like build it yourself, but with more already prefabricated. I did build the desk that I'm sitting at right now, but our dining room table is actually really nice old. So it just sort of like you take a leaf out and you unscrew the leg. It's like really nice old wood and.
Nice.
I'm looking around. Not much, honestly. A lot of small items. We don't have a ton of space, so no huge furniture pieces that had to get like bolted together. Really, the bed is the only thing. That's the IKEA special $300 frame from college. So still going strong.
I had
Yeah,
one of
it
those,
was
and I've had to mend it. There's like because it's king size, so it has a metal pole down the middle of the bed
Yep.
frame, and then there's like two slat boards that sit side by side, and they rest
Yeah.
on that middle thing. Something happened when we moved. When I put it back together, Kristen, somebody sat down on the end of the bed, and that metal pole just ripped the screws out of the footboard and just fell to the floor. So I had to pick it back up and run
Yep.
different screws, like construction style wood screws all around it to hold it together.
Yeah, that particle board is not the best. But
It
like,
started to go and went immediately.
I mean, this thing's lasted for like 6 years. For $300, 6 years of literally daily use. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I suck at math.
nightly, but yeah.
Pennies a day, right?
We got a one of those like mattress in a box type things that inflates whatever. I think I got it off of Amazon years ago, and honestly, it's held up very well. It's nice. It's not got springs in it and stuff. It's all pretty much just all memory foam layers, like a variation, whatever. But then I bought a frame like from the same company with it, whatever. And it's like, okay, because you don't really need, I don't know. I didn't need a box spring, so it just kind of just goes on there. And when I was moving for the first time, after I had put it together, I forgot that there were a couple of little like retaining screws in the middle because it kind of is in two parts. And I just, in the most like Hulk smash method ever, I was like, oh, we're good to fold this up, right? And I just folded it and just bent those two. And there was pressure, like there was resistance. I should have stopped. Honestly, in hindsight, it was pretty cool. I just did that. It did that. And then we took it to the new house. I didn't even know I messed anything up yet. And then we did. And it was just mangled, like in the middle. And I was like, so we ended up just literally just rebuying the same thing because we got it off of Amazon as well. So
Yeah.
we slept on the floor for a day or two and made it through. So, but yeah, we thoughts and prayers, please, if you can send those vibes my way for what we're doing. It'll be fun. We've built a lot of stuff. I'm doing all that. Oh, the one other thing that was a real pain in the ass to put together was our treadmill when it arrived. we had purchased for the people to deliver it and install it, and then the team that delivered it, I did not want to install my treadmill, and they wanted no part of, because they were not from the company when we did that. They were just a moving company, and they had no idea that they were supposed to install it. They gave me quick indication of that, and then first off, I wasn't about to ask these guys who had no expectation that they were supposed to put this thing together. I'm like, okay, you're for sure not ready to do this. Like, you don't have the tools, whatever, for this. You're not in the right headspace for this. And this is not something that I just want, like, haphazardly put together. And so I just sent them on their merry way, whatever. And, but of course, me being me, I was like, okay, cool. Shiny new thing just arrived. Heather's not going to be at home for like 4 or 5 hours. How hard could it be to put this thing together by yourself? Actually, I did it. I did pretty much the entire thing. There was one piece where you had to hold up. It's like the hydraulic thing where you like lay down the actual belt of it, where I had to hold it up, and then there's like a retaining pin that goes in it, so you have to have one person hold the thing up while you put it in there and get the tension on it and stuff. So, well, boys, that's all I really had about the furniture side of things. So I figure we'll spend a little more time talking about our second topic of the day, which is, Walker, you sent us just kind of a vibe check and said, do you guys have memories of, you started memories of camping, but then you kind of expounded it a little bit of just dudes being bros, just like that kind of thing. And we went a little further on that. So what brought your mind there? And then I guess just take it away, man. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm always you know me, I'm always in a camping mood. But I was thinking, I've been thinking about Big Bend all week, obviously, and what we're going to be doing out there. And I was reflecting back on some of the past camping trips I've had with my dad, and we get along great, and until sometimes we don't. This is it. Well, I'll share the story in a second. It's a good story, but he's my dad, and I was just smiling thinking about this and wondering if y'all had these moments as well. Because I was just reflecting back, and when I went to summer camp years ago, and in college when I was leading trips, there's always some bullshit that makes things a little bit better. So that was what I was reflecting on, was that fun little diagram. This is a well explored topic. Type 1 fun is fun when you do it and fun later. Type 2 fun is not fun when you're doing it, but fun to think about when you go back. And Type 3 fun is not fun either time. So, maybe fun is a bit of a misnomer, but perhaps good for a story at the very least. But this sort of Type 2 fun moments are what I was thinking about. So that's where I'm coming from this week. So I'll start you off with just a little story. So my father, I'm an old dad kid, so my dad's on the older side, and he's probably in better shape than I am, but he's an older guy. And we were out in Wyoming doing some fly fishing a couple years ago, and I don't remember, we had some just dumbass argument about something. It was like which orientation to put the tent, and we both have very strong opinions about stupid ass shit. Maybe it was like, okay, what's the correct knot to use to tighten down the tarp? I don't know, something on that level of dumb. And so we were getting into it and getting a little heated, and then he's like, my chest doesn't feel so good. Oh shit, I have inherited his hereditary high blood pressure. So we were like, okay, well, instantly turned around, drove about an hour to the nearest hospital, got all the blood work done. He's totally fine. But I have a phenomenal set of photos on this day, going from setting up camp to my dad in a hospital gown, and then us at a barbecue joint at like 2 a.m. getting barbecue after his potential heart attack scare, with giving me a thumbs up. That was pretty good. It was not fun in the moment, but boy howdy, I think about that one with a smile. So we were joking this week too, like, well, Dad, are you if you kick it out in Big Bend, like, whatever, I'll drag you out. No worries. Because that Big Bend, I think it's Big Bend County, I don't know exactly. They got one ambulance total, or at least that's the apocryphal. They may have more ambulances, but suffice to say, it's extremely remote. Their hospital and medical care is limited, so if you have something, you're kind of hosed.
Huh? Yeah, that's fun is an interesting way. I can definitely think back like on things that would be like a memorable, very memorable. But that that edge is a little closer to type 3 for me, where it's like, oh, okay, what's happening with their heart and stuff. But I do think you've turned it around with the barbecue joint at 2 a.m. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it was a terrible night. We were having a really bad time. And, you know, we were grumpy at each other for some stupid reason. I don't know. Just arguing with my dad. I think very fondly. I mean, it's very emblematic of just, I don't know, my father being who he is.
Yeah.
You know,
isn't it funny how like that can turn on a dime, right? Like you can be frustrated with someone and then like something happens, like it's like, okay, that didn't matter at all, we're good, you know, and like, all right, let's go do this. Like you can just do that. And so I think that's good. I think that's like, there are some people that's like, well, good, you know, it's like, I hope you're it's like, no, this isn't something we joke about. It's like, get in the car now, like we're going,
let's go. It was yeah. It was, even in the moment, it was a little funny, honestly.
Right.
It just like the comedic timing of it, the way he was like, you know, blah 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 blah. Why aren't you listening to what I gotta say? Something. My chest doesn't feel so good. I mean, just I wish we got a bit of a recording of it, because it was, you know, record scratch freeze frame kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, great trip. Honestly, we had such a good time on that trip.
Kind of like the classic, like, I wish I could go back and be a fly on the wall, or like, if I've said this, I think on the podcast before, but it's like a moment where I wish that I could have, like, I could just see like an out of body experience. Like maybe once we all kick it and we're at the pearly gates or whatever you think's happening afterwards, and you just go into a room. I like to think it's kind of like NFL quarterbacks watching film on Monday after they played on Sunday, and you're just watching back everything, and you just get like, you got the big screen, the auditorium, you're the only one in there, and you got like a tablet in front of you with all like the key memories of your life.
Best hits.
And it's like, hey, you get three. And I need you to choose. Yep.
Send me to hell instead of picking 3.
God,
get out of here.
I'd be stuck there for a long time.
And you're sitting there, you're trying to decide. But there's some that I want to revisit, because it's like, okay, was my memory cloudy? Do I actually remember this, how it happened? Did I handle this right? But
the answer is probably
we're terrible. Humans are awful at that, honestly.
Yeah. So trying to remember with all that. But one for me, so this was definitely along the same line. So when I was a junior into my senior year of high school, I went on a missions trip with some people in my youth group, and some of my cousins went. And we went, I'm actually looking at the map now, because I had pulled up Big Bend because I wanted to see how close it was, because you were talking about driving out, but I was like,
it's far as fuck.
It's still in Texas though, right?
Yeah, okay. Well, but hey,
which is insane.
Texas, it's a big state.
Oh, I know it is. I know it. So 8 hours and 15 minutes just from like Houston to, like, that's just what I put in there.
Yeah, a little bit more than that, because it's going to be a little bit more than that, because you got to get into the park too, and the park is huge.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what Google spit now. So I don't know if it could just be doing
between 8 and 10 hours, probably door to door, something like that.
So anyways, but what reminded me is I see, you know, down south, Matamoros, Mexico. So right on the border. Yep. And so that's actually where we went through to get to our mission trip, because we were in, boys, I'd love to tell you that I had a full comprehension of what we were doing with our mission trip. All I know is we went to Garden Valley, Texas. There was like this little, I don't have a better word for it, so it was like a compound type thing. It was like a Christian compound type thing where they had a bunch of buildings. They had like an auditorium over here. They had like a mess hall over here where we ate, and they had like a bunch of, like, I think they had like a school there, like a Christian academy type thing, but we didn't go in that area. And so and then they had a bunch of cabins in these woods that we bunked up in. And essentially what it was it was kind of a cool concept, because you had a bunch of like mission trips leaving at the same time. So everyone would come here, and then they'd kind of do like a rally, whatever, make sure you're prepped, make sure like all the leaders are prepped for what's going on. And then they had like this big send off where, you know, everyone get on the bus and you kind of like celebrate and do whatever. So they did that. Again, I say all of this, even that is like the highlight of what happened, because everything was downhill after that. But we went from Garden Valley and drove on a bus all night to get to Matamoros, because I have no idea how far those are from each other. But I guess we went to right across the border. We were in, I'm scrolling in here real quick, Brownsville.
Oh, yeah, all the way down, yeah.
All the way down. We're in Brownsville, Texas. I'm sure I could probably find it. It was a Walmart parking lot. they took our buses and there were like 3 buses worth of kids and all our supplies and everything. They parked it in the Brownsville Walmart, whatever. And then what they did is they took white unmarked vans, like cargo vans, and we put all our food in the middle. And then we wrapped the food around with our luggage. And then we had like, I think our number was like 84 people going on this mission trip.
Wow.
We went in like teams of 6 across the border. So I literally sat in this Walmart parking lot for like 10 hours waiting. So
you guys were like basically smuggling?
No, basically. We literally were. And I had no concept of what was happening. I was a junior in high school, and I'm like just hanging out. Like I had made a bunch of friends because we had been at this, facility for whatever. And so we did all this. Finally got across the border, and we ended up in this like little fishing village. And I guess we were there. We put on like a vacation Bible school for these kids, which was fun. I actually have a really cool picture from when I was there because I was playing the drums. I was just learning how to play the drums. And there's this old drum set. I had this really cool picture of like a bunch of, kids from Mexico that were just hanging out with me, like watching me play and kind of just, being cool. I don't know. It was a cool moment. It's a good thing. And then we built like 4 houses, but they were just 1-room buildings, essentially, is what we were doing, like plywood, whatever, and doing that. And then we came home. But we slept in tents the entire week. We were on the ground. That's where we took, I think I even talked on the podcast at one point, we took showers with just like buckets of bleach water and stuff and just mosquitoes everywhere. That was, I look back on it in the weirdest way. Like there's like a little bit of fun in there because I had like friends that I made and things of that sort.
You smuggled yourself into Mexico. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I was fully on board until you got to the like doing VBS stuff. Take me back to the smuggling part. That sounds like the fun part.
I know that. I mean, I wish I had more, like where I'm at now. I can see because like my cousin, she had gone on a mission trip through the same organization to Africa, and I guess it was a wildly different experience because they flew in a much smaller group. Like it's just a whole different vibe, right?
Yeah.
This was massive trip because we're like, okay, it was probably on the cheaper end of what we had to raise money to do that, so it like had a lower barrier to entry for people going. And what it seems like to me is the trip kind of exploded in size. Like usually it's not something that they would have that many people go. And so literally we went, took all the buses, got to that Walmart parking lot, and then just in groups of 5 or 6 or 7 or however many we could get in there, and we just put the food in between. We had peanut butter and jelly. Everyone was tasked with bringing a thing of peanut butter and jelly, so we had like hundreds of jars, and that's just what we had. So didn't eat PB&J for about, I don't know, 3 years after that. So
I imagine it was on like all joking aside, I imagine it was like a safety thing or something. So you're not like, look at us bringing, pallets of food and people and whatever.
Yeah. No, and so once we got across, they did the classic. I don't know if it's classic. Actually, I don't know why I said that. They took all the vans. They went back into this little alleyway behind. I can see it in my head to this day. Took us into this little alleyway behind some stores. Kind of like the equivalent of what you would say is like if you went behind the strip mall where all the dumpsters are.
Sure.
Went back there. And they just had some essentially like cored out buses that had, instead of like our school buses having the rows of seats, the seats were just pushed to be aligned on the outside. And then we had like the handles, and we drove from there an hour and a half out to this fishing village. I would never be able to find it. The last thing I'll say about it though is there was this little shop that was in this fishing village that would get supplies every day. And it was like a little convenience store equivalent. So chips and drinks and stuff like this, they made an absolute killing because they would get these 2.5 liters of just Mexican Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
And we would buy every single one that they had every single day when it would show up.
I hope they raised the prices on you guys. I hope they really tax the hell out of you.
Yeah,
they started real low to begin with, so it did not matter. And God bless the souls of the leaders who were trying to do. They're like, guys, make sure you're drinking enough water because you can get dehydrated if you drink all that. And we're just sitting there just like
chugging,
with the with
Coke.
it was
Yeah, what do you think
straight
they
from
made the Coke out of? Water.
yeah, exactly. So
It's mostly water.
So yeah, that's mostly type 3. When I look back, I'm like, I would not do that again. But there were some fun memories in there in the mix. And then the shell shock of getting to do, there's a massive water park in Texas. I can't think of what it's called, but
Schlitterbahn.
yes, we went to Schlitterbahn when we got back across. It was like,
That is a big difference.
right. That was the carrot on the stick, the shell shock that we had like in our bodies from being in the heat and stuff. Because we did this over the summertime, so like being in the heat all
God, it
week
was in
and
the
stuff.
summer. Oh,
Oh,
I can't even imagine how much actual weight I lost just because we were just pouring sweat. You would get out of the shower, and like I said before, like you're just dry as you walk out, and then you're immediately sweating before you could even get changed, anything of that sort. And it's like that was pretty much worthless. So. But yeah, that was my like type 2 into type 3 fun type thing. I do look back on it fondly, but I would absolutely under no circumstances send my child into a foreign land like that to do that. And so sorry, mom and dad. I know they will literally listen to this, and I think we've talked about all this before, but we made it back. We're good. We did it.
yeah,
We
no
did the
harm, no
thing.
foul.
yes.
I suppose so. Nick, you said you had some type 2. You had lots of type 2 fun stuff.
Yeah, literally every time I did a training exercise with the National Guard. Every single time. One of my buddies, Kenny, came over yesterday. We were hanging out and just telling stories about all the dumb stuff that happened to us that we crack up and laugh about now was really stupid then. I mean, quite literally every single time we did a field training exercise, it was like that. Uh, Let me try and think of the best example other than going to Fort Polk in August, which is in Louisiana, for a month-long fake
Oh,
training. Yeah, there were several examples within that one by itself. Yeah, there was one we talked about this last night. There was one annual training, which for the National Guard people is your like 2 weeks in the summer. The selling line is that you do one weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. That's a fucking lie. You do sometimes a couple weekends a month and several weeks in the summer. Just depends on what the Army wants you to do. And you usually don't, not usually, you never get a say in whether or not you're going to go. When they tell you what the training schedule is, you go do that with a very few exceptions. So this one was a 3 week annual training in the summer at Camp Atterbury, which is in central Indiana, Edinburgh. It's actually a fairly large training facility, like a lot of active duty and Air Force and Marines and stuff go through it. A lot of times when they're getting ready to deploy. So there's very large training areas. They have like artillery places where they're shooting off live artillery rounds. They have the coolest thing was that they flew A-10s and did A-10 training runs. So you'd hear them firing off the Gatling guns off the A-10s. But we were doing some fake pretend like we're in a battle training, and the section I was in was like a headquarters for the brigade, which is where all of the very important people are. All of the guys that are kicking indoors and shooting artillery rounds and stuff are like very far away from where we're set up. The point is that if the enemy makes it to the location that I was working in, everything's screwed. Everybody's dead. Nobody's coming back. Like if they made it to our talk, a lot of things went very wrong, and we should have been expelled before that. So there's like the high speed training we're doing was just like setting up these big tents and putting up computer systems inside of them and making the phones work, and everything's running off of like a satellite terminal that runs through a truck that has a bunch of routers and switches that runs into our server stacks that hosts all the apps and stuff. And that was like a 3-day thing to get all that set up, give or take, depending on what was broken and what wasn't. And then after that, we're just standing around doing nothing. So this particular training, we did that, set up the tent, put all the shit in it, get it running, establish who's on night shift and day shift, and then we moved. And then we would tear everything down and move to a different location. We did that like 3 or 4 times in the span of like 5 days, to the point where several of us, myself included, would work a night shift. Well, we would help put all of the stuff up during the day, work the night shift, sleep for not very long, help tear it down, and then move it to the next location. One of those days included my birthday, so that was fun.
Nice.
Um, and it culminated to this point where there was this one training area that everybody knew is literally a bowl. It's the bottom. It's like the lowest point of Camp Atterbury. It's just a swamp. If it sprinkles, if there is a cloud that goes overhead, it floods. And it's raining. It's pouring rain. We tear it up, just set up. I did a guard shift that night. And then they're like, yeah, we got to move it. This is not a good spot. We got to move everything. So we tear it all down and we move it to that location. It's pouring rain and this place is already flooded. And we got like, let's see, there were several vehicles out there, right? Because we had a whole headquarters company. Of those vehicles, there were several that got stuck immobile in the soft, muddy ground. Two of them were like the really big, they're called LMTVs, where they're just the dual axle, basically cargo trucks, the ones with the soft tops. And then you just throw all the stuff in the back. And then, not to be confused with the FMTVs, which are the same except for they have triaxle. And then we had like Humvees, most of which were up armored and had shelters on the back because that's where all our equipment was for like our communications equipment. So these are getting buried up to the axle in the freaking mud, and nobody's having a good time. Everybody's yelling at everybody. At the end of the day, they bring a big wrecker vehicle, which is like it's almost like a semi, but it's meant to extract stuff that's stuck. It starts driving out and hooks up to somebody and tries to pull them out, and it gets stuck. They bring a second wrecker. The second wrecker shows up to pull the first one out. It got stuck.
Nice.
They scheduled a third wrecker. It comes out and stops on the road, and the guy gets out and walks down and then just shakes his head, gets in and leaves. So we're there all day. And then the next thing that shows up is a goddamn tank recovery vehicle, like a track wheel tank, basically,
Sheesh.
without artillery on it, to rip everybody out in the mud. Obviously, that was a terrible day. We're wet. I mean, like, I made the best of it to the point where one of the guys in my unit and I were sitting on top of the shelter of my truck, listening to CCR, pretending we were in Vietnam. That's how wet and muddy and miserable it was. People like lieutenant colonels are throwing their helmets 30 feet in the air because somebody got another truck stuck. It was a nightmare. But now we talk about it, and as soon as, like, I brought it up last night to my buddy. I said, because we had mentioned somebody throwing something in the air. And I go, hey, Kenny, how far do you think the lieutenant colonel threw his helmet that day with no context? And he lost it. He knew immediately what I was talking about. And so that just spiraled into several other examples of why are we doing this dumb shit? But now you look back and it's like, oh, that was fun, even though it was terrible.
Yeah, it's a good type 2 fun it's always good for a story, which is helpful when you have a podcast for
Yeah.
Right.
Something about those, like, the shared trauma of it all. It's like, okay, this really, it's almost like the staying power of the memory without like the negatives, right? Like, it's like, okay, one good night of sleep, a good meal, something like that, we can wash off, like, you know, the stain of what you're doing. I think it like edges into the area of like type 3 where you're like, okay, that did not fix the trouble we just had. So we had a little bit of that when I wouldn't necessarily go through it again, but it does make for a good story. So I guess this is just like surely type 3 fun, where it was like, I guess fun's a weird way to even put it at that point, but like when our apartment flooded a couple years ago, and then we looked up, I think the only fun, because it was funny part, was when I looked up and I was like, okay, we just had Christmas. It was Christmas night of, I think 22 is actually when it happened. So it's wild that we're in 2025 now. So Christmas night, we were up in Indiana. We came back home late, probably about 10:30 that night, and then went to bed, woke up to the fire alarms that sounded like sirens in our apartment building. It was these big industrial ones that they put in whatever warehouses and stuff like that. I have no idea why they were in our apartment. And so we shoot up awake. I put my hand over it. It's like wall mounted. It's not on the ceiling. It was just wall mounted because it's wired into everything.
Yeah, sure.
I put it over just to get like oriented. We're not even awake yet. Heather gets up. She turns the light on, or maybe like, I don't remember, whatever. Light on. We open the door, And I remember I was close enough where I was holding over the fire alarm to open the door with my other hand. And as I did, we were greeted within the threshold of the doorway, just a literal sheet of water just pouring down. And then just going crazy. We had mounted on our back porch right now, we have like our catio furniture or whatever, so they can climb up and they can hang out outside, and there's some hammocks. And I just remember seeing like BK was up on one of the up on like one of the high perches, like a cat, I mean like a wild animal trying to fight from the flood, like stay away the rising water. Zoom darts into our room like immediately, and so I get both of them. There were no sirens going off or no fire alarm in our primary bathroom, like that was connected to our. So I remember throwing them in there, getting them closed up in there because there was no water coming from the ceiling there. That's where it was coming from, the ceiling. So I was like, okay, the flood's above us, which was crazy because we were on the 3rd floor. There was only one more floor above us. So I was like, okay, it must be coming from there. Fast forward to we find out it actually literally happened outside our apartment. And the reason it happened was the apartment complex was in an L shape. At the middle of the L, there was a elevator shaft, but both of the hallways going out from that middle area were just open air. And the temperature had dropped so dramatically that the sprinkler system, I don't know if it was well insulated or not well enough.
It wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, not well enough.
It was not well insulated because it froze and broke.
Yeah, so froze, busted directly outside. So the water was pouring into our apartment from that, just probably spraying everywhere, going into our ceiling, out every single possible place of entry. So every light, every fixture, anything that was into the ceiling is just pouring out. And so our entire apartment flooded. So fast forward to we get out of there, we get the cats out of there. Actually, we had tried to get them with us when we went the first time. But the problem is I grabbed their 2 carriers out of the closet and I put one on the countertop, which was not getting poured on, and one on our dining room table, which was getting poured on. I didn't realize, or I don't know. We just put them down. It's dramatic. Well, everything's going crazy. Quickly. You can't think straight. So I get Heather out because I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know if it's actually like if there's an actual fire and this is like some sort of response, whatever. I'm like, all right, let's get Heather out. So got her to the car. To get her out of the building so she's not getting blown up by this fire siren anymore. Go back up, realize what we had done, the error of our ways. We had left one of them in the water. So I got Zoom in the carrying case, in his case, and then my only option was to stuff BK in a duffel bag because I had no other way to do it. So that is my classic. Like, I wish I could go back and see, because I literally, like a sitcom, I picked him up. I had him by the scruff at this point because he was trying to get away from me. Yeah. I looked at him. I literally looked him in the eye. I was like, I'm sorry, man. And I just shoved him in. Once I got him in the bag, once we got going, he didn't cry one bit. I left a little bit of air. I mean, it wasn't airtight or anything, but like I left a little bit of, space for him. Got both. I put the duffel bag and then Zoom's carrier into the backseat of the car, got in the front seat, and Heather's like, where's BK at? And then he, like, on a dime, perfect prompting, he just, the tiniest meow, like, just from the back. And she's like, is he in that bag? I was like, yeah. And so it was so chaotic. So, like, I can laugh about it now, but we also had to live in a nearby hotel for like 5 days. And then a series of moving into like this little apartment and this little apartment, try to remediate, because we found out, down the line, okay, water pouring from the sprinkler system into that, it had a negative grade or whatever you want to call it towards the elevator, which of course then poured all the water into the elevator shaft, which fried everything. So everyone moving from the top floors could not use the elevators at that point, which had made it way easier to move in.
No, so the heavy furniture and an elevator instead of up and downstairs. I don't know if I believe that. Somebody on the internet correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know. I don't know what's more fun. So that's what took it to. That would have had it type 2 fun had I been able to move our couches and tables and all that stuff. However, I will say our apartment complex, they did a solid. They got me a moving company twice. So we moved from that one to a small. And then when we moved from, basically we went back to them. Our lease was up in like 4 months from them. We're like, hey, we don't want to move away from here, but we can't stay in this tiny one that we moved into. We're like, do you have any other options? They're like, hey, we have a larger 1-bedroom in this building. If you guys want to move there. So we re-signed our lease. And so that's where we were before we moved into the house. But that, I can look back on it fondly, but just getting getting our cats getting the fellas into our into the hotel, walking into the hotel and being like, do you have anything that is litter box shaped? Because I had just bought new litter that was in like a sealed whatever like plastic container. I had that with me. I had the wherewithal to grab that at one point. I was like, I just need something to put this in because when I get them. And so she goes back to the back and she's like, can this work? And it was the, like when you buy like bulk Gatorade or something like that. And it has like the little cardboard, just like the tiny, I was like, that is literally perfect. You just made my night. Like I needed something like that. Something that just had a little bit of a rim on it that I could pour litter into. They could do that. And I was like, okay, we're good. So we were able to get a little bit of sleep. And then I had to call my boss at like 5 o'clock in the morning and be like, hey, like I just left him a voicemail because I was like, I got to get this all out when I can. Told him everything that happened. They were real cool about it, but that was a interesting mix of fun and not fun for that night for sure. So, any other stories that come to mind that you guys want to share? Are we good there?
I'm trying to. I mean, like I've got so many, but mostly just
done a lot of stupid stuff.
Yeah. I'm an idiot, but all the common thread among all of them, I think, is just you end up in a comfortable spot at the end.
Yeah,
you have a hot meal and some warm socks. People underestimate the value of a dry pair of socks.
I mean,
I'm sure Nick does not. In Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
I mean, one of our earliest episodes, we talked about that. We had the debate on whether you would take clean underwear or clean socks.
Yeah, we did.
I think both every time if I can get them, but the socks thing. I need dry socks.
If I'm going to leave you all with anything today, take the socks.
Honestly, I love it. Why don't we just call it there? Sage advice, take the socks for your life. Now, they don't necessarily have to be clean socks. They do have to be dry socks.
Correct. I prefer clean and dry, but
that's ideal. But don't put the wet socks on.
Don't put the wet socks back on.
Don't walk around with wet socks. That's the piece of advice we're going to leave you with today. Appreciate you guys for listening. Appreciate you guys for making time. I know we're on a tighter constraint today, so doing that. So I'm going to get after it with this building. I will give you guys an update. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fine. I'm working it up.
Set up a live stream so we can subscribe.
Yeah, hang out for that.
Only if you build it shirtless.
That's not going to happen. So I'm sorry. I probably get flagged in different countries.
Disappointing the fans.
We do have a few followers who listen from other countries. They got different rules and regulations than we do over here.
Well, at least do it barefoot.
Yeah, I'll send a special link for that one. So. Just a little bit of a wider camera angle. It'll cut off on the feed at a certain angle.
Hobbit cam.
Yep. So. Well, appreciate you guys. If you're still listening, as always, we thank you for hanging in with us. If you'd like to join the conversation, we definitely have some things we need to share some pictures of this week. So join the Discord, bit.ly/ForcedToPod Discord. We'll do that and join the conversation. Let us know if you got some things that come to mind when we're talking about, okay, that was not fun in the moment, but we can laugh about it now. We appreciate it. And until next time, be well.